Madhurya-Kadambini. First shower of nectar. Preeminence of bhakti. Prayer to obtain divine blessings or Mangalacharan. Text 1. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. The mercy of Swayam Bhagwan Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like a limitless, uncontrolled cloud bank of extraordinary nectar, Mahamadhurya, that falls like rain on the heart of the sādhaka. The shower of His mercy fully bestows vitality upon the crops of the ninefold limbs of devotion, such as Shravan and Kirtan, that have been freshly sown in the field of the sadhaka's heart. Even the first appearance of the cloud bank of Mahaprabhu's mercy dispels the virulent, burning sensation felt during the summer season, the various material desires for one's own enjoyment, and makes jubilation swell within the heart of all devotees throughout the universe, like rivers swelling from rainfall. May that unrestrained and unlimitedly powerful cloud bank of Srimad Mahaprabhu's sweet mercy, the influence of which is felt even from a great distance, fill me, a dry, lifeless tree in the desert, with life-giving rasa. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Again and again I offer my respectful prostrated obeisances at the lotus feet of my Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravisht Om Vishnupad Ashtotarshat Śrīmad Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosvāmī, who is an ocean of causeless mercy, unto the lotus feet of Jagat Guru Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, to Śrīla Satchidanand Bhaktivedānta Ṭhākura, to the highly exalted preceptor Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura, who is the greatest rasika ācārya, that is, spiritual preceptor expert in relishing transcendental emotions, to Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, who is Śrīmad Mahaprabhu's most intimate associate, and to the most magnanimous Satchidanand Sri Gaurhari, who is Sri Krishna himself, resplendent with the mood and luster of Srimati Radhika. Thus, praying to all of them for their mercy, I am beginning the Bhāvānuvāda, or translation revealing the author's intent, of Madhurya Kadambini and the commentary entitled Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. In order to reveal to the Gauḍīya Vaiṣṇava society the intrinsic nature of pure devotion or śuddha-bhakti, the sequence of its appearance, bhakti's self-manifesting nature, and her unfathomable glories, he who is most worshipful and the best among the rasika Gauḍīya Vaiṣṇava ācāryas, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura, has composed this unparalleled sacred volume entitled Madhurya-Kadambini. Śrīla Cakravartī Ṭhākura is one of the prominent and effulgent pillars in the line of the Rūpānuga Vaishnava-ācāryas, or spiritual preceptors in the line of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī. Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, Srimad Mahaprabhu's most favored object of mercy, has described in his sacred text, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, the steps in the sequence of the process of devotion to the Supreme Lord, Bhakti, from the initial stage of faith, Shraddha, all the way to the attainment of love of God, Prema. The practitioners of Bhakti who accept these steps, beginning with the stage of Shraddha, can easily enter the kingdom of Prema. That sequence is Ādau Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sango Ath Bhajan Kriya Tato Anarth Nivrittihi Syat Tato Nishtha Ruchis Tatha At Asaktis Tato Bhavas Tataha Prema Abhyudanchati Sadhakanam Ayam Premnaha Pradur Bhave Bhavet Kramaha. Sri Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1:4-15 and 16. Faith or Shraddha first awakens in the heart of the practitioner of Bhakti. As a result, a desire for the association of saintly persons that is, sadhu sangha awakens, followed by a propensity to practice their teachings, bhajan kriya. After that comes the stage in which obstacles to devotion are cleared, anartha-nivritti. Subsequently, firm faith, nishtha, in bhajan or devotional absorption awakens, followed by the awakening of transcendental relish or ruchi. Thereafter, intense attachment awakens to Vrajendra Nandan Shri Krishna, the object of one's bhajan. Surpassing even this is the awakening of transcendental emotion or bhava, which is the very form of pure existence. And then pure love of God, prema, arises. The sequence in which pure loving devotion or prema bhakti awakens within the heart of the practitioner of bhakti has been delineated in this way. In the sacred text, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura has presented in a natural and explicit manner the symptoms of every stage in the development of bhakti, from shraddha all the way to the appearance of prema, as well as explaining obstacles such as offenses that must be abandoned along the way. This great literature is likened to a lantern that illuminates the path for the practitioner of bhakti or bhakti sādhaka. There is no scope for even the slightest doubt about this. By practically following this sacred text, the non-duplicitous practitioner will certainly be able to perceive his own stage of bhakti, his deficiencies therein, and what further actions he must take to advance along the path of bhakti. Moreover, an increasing ability and inclination will awaken in his heart to advance in the kingdom of bhakti. Found within this prayer to obtain divine blessings, the first verse in this great literature by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura, who is the spiritual master of the whole world and therefore most worshipful, is his supplication to obtain the causeless mercy of his own worshipful deity, the embodied form of Rasaraj Mahabhav Sri Chaitanya Deva, who is identical with Sri Krishna but adorned with the radiant complexion and mood of Sri Radha. The mercy from the ocean of compassion, Satchidanand Sri Gaur Hari himself, has been called the unrestrained Madhurya-Kadambini. A series of connected clouds filled with water is called ācāryas. Hence, the meaning of the title Madhurya-Kadambini is a row of clouds that pour rain in the form of sweet nectar or Madhurya. For this reason, the author has entitled this book Madhurya-Kadambini. In Ujjwal Neelmani 1119, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī has written, Madhurya means possessing unequaled beauty and charm and an unprecedented nature in all conditions, in all circumstances, and in all activities. Thus, the topmost Madhurya is the form of all sweetness, Swayam Bhagwan Vrajendra Nandan Shri Krishna. Śrīla Jiva Gosvāmī elaborates on this subject in his Laghu Toshni commentary on verse 10, 12, 11 of Śrīmad Bhagavatam. The particular unique conclusive truth or tattva, whose intrinsic form or swarupa, divine majesty or aishwarya, and sweetness or madhurya are all most extraordinary is known as Bhagavan. The intrinsic form of Parabrahma, the Supreme Spirit, is certainly the zenith of divine rapture, Paramananda. His unsurpassed and unlimited absolute authority is indeed his Aishwarya. The excellence of his beautiful form, qualities, pastimes, and so forth, which are innately all attractive, is his factual Madhurya. Śrīla Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami also has established this perfect conclusion in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 21:110. Madhurya Bhagavata Sara, the essence of the quality of Godhead is Madhurya. It is only by the causeless mercy of the Transcendent personal form of ultimate magnanimity, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Deva, that it has become known to the world that the essence of Godhead or Bhagavata is founded upon Madhurya. According to the opinion of all the Vaishnava ācāryas of ancient times, Aishwarya or divine majesty is the essence of Godhead. However, based upon the verses of Śrīmad Bhagavatam, which is the faultless essence of authoritative evidence and the crown jewel of all revealed scriptures, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his favored objects of mercy, the Goswamis, have concluded that Madhurya, in fact, is the foundation of the original form of Godhood. Although the essential nature or Swarupa of every avatar of Godhead is in truth non-different, still Scripture states, Gudam Param Brahma Manushalingam. That is, Parabrahma Vrajendra Nandan Shri Krishna, who is hidden in a human-like form, is directly the embodiment and transcendent personal form of Madhurya. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 7:10-48 and Raso Vaiṣṇava. He is rasa. Taittiriya Upanishad 2:7-1. Not only this, he is the intrinsic object of every kind of rasa, and he is the supreme connoisseur of rasa, rasik shekhara. The pinnacle of development of the various rasas is not observed in any of Bhagwan's forms apart from Vrajendra Nandan Shri Krishna. Only this Shri Krishna is the emporium of all transcendental rasa, Akhil Rasamrit Murti. In him, all rasas are seen to be generated and developed to their furthest limit. In Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī has described Shri Krishna's 4 extraordinary madhuris, aspects of sweetness. These sweetnesses cannot be found in any other of Bhagwan's forms. They are the sweetness of his pastimes, Leela Madhuri, the sweetness of his love, Prema Madhuri, the sweetness of his flute song, Venu Madhuri, and the sweetness of his beauty, Rūpa Madhuri. These 4 madhuris are perceivable in their ultimate completeness only in Vraj Vihari Shri Krishna. His 4 madhuris always shine forth solely in Vraja. Laghu Bhagavatamrita. This book is also like a row of clouds that pour down the rain of Krishna's above-mentioned madhuris. For this reason, too, the author has named this sacred text Madhurya Kadambini. On another note, Madhurya Tattva, or the conclusive truth about absolute sweetness, is extremely difficult to realize and is therefore completely confidential. Besides receiving the causeless mercy of those who actually relish these madhuris, that is, the mercy of Bhagwan or his devotees, there is no other way they can be relished. Prem ras nirayas karite aswadan, rag marg bhakti loke karite pracharan, rasik shekhar Krishna param karun, ei dui hetu haite ichharu utkam. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela 4:15 and 16. The meaning of this verse is as follows. As well as being the supreme connoisseur of rasa, Rasik Shekhara is also supremely compassionate or Param Karun. At the dawn of this present Kali Yuga, the same Shri Krishna again came to this world as the supreme connoisseur of rasa. His purpose was to taste the essence of Prema Rasa, and as the most compassionate, his purpose was to distribute the path of spontaneous devotion or Rag Marg Bhakti to the whole world. He therefore accepted the divine mood and golden complexion of Mahabhava Swarupni, or the embodiment of the most exalted divine love, Srimati Radhika herself, and thus appeared in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. In this form, Sri Krishna personally tasted his own 4 extraordinary madhuris to the furthest limit and drowned the whole world in a flood of his prema. Therefore, at the beginning of this book, in the revered author's prayerful invocation verse to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his own worshipful deity, he has referred to the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nir-Ankush Mahamadhurya Kadambini, the unrestrained cloud bank of great sweetness. During the monsoon season, a row of clouds, heavy with water, spreads throughout the sky, rendering the earth awash with its rainfall. Just as that row of clouds has no preference for either high land or low, pure land or impure, pious land or impious, similarly, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's unbridled mercy has left behind all kinds of rules and prohibitions, without considering who is qualified to receive it and who is not. His mercy has offered prema to all the living entities in the entire universe, thus making them blessed. Chaitanya avatare bahe prema amrit banya, sab jiva premi bhase prithvi hailo dhanya. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit, Ant Leela 3.254. At the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's descent, there was such a flood of the nectar of prema that it drowned the living entities throughout the world. In this way, the earth became fortunate. Utha lilo prema banya chaudike bedaya, stri vrid balak युवा सकली डुबाया, सज्जन दुर्जन पंगु जड़ अंधगण, प्रेम बनाए डुबाए लो जगतेर जन, जगत डुबाए लो जीवेर हाइलो बीजनाश, ताहा देखी पंच जनेर परम उल्लास, जातो जातो प्रेमा वृष्टि करे पंचजन, तता तता बड़े जल व्यापे त्रिभुवन. श्री चैतन्य चरितामृत आदि लीला 7.25-28. In all four directions, the flood of prema swelled, immersing all within it, women, old men, children, and youths. In this way, it inundated the whole world, drowning all, the genteel, the miscreants, the crippled, the disabled, and the blind. When the five personalities comprising the Panch Tattva beheld all the living entities of the world thus submerged, and the seed of those living entities, material existence completely destroyed, their jubilation knew no bounds. As the Panch Tattva continue to cause showers of prema to fall, the deluge continues to expand and is thus spread throughout the three worlds. In this way, during his manifest presence, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu granted the gift of pure love for Sri Krishna or Krishna Prema by the influence of his unbridled mercy, even to those who perform no spiritual practice, and made the entire universe fortunate. Krishna Prema hai yar dura darshne. By beholding Mahaprabhu and his devotees even from a distance, one attains Krishna Prema. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 16.121. However, when he is not manifest, people only attain prema through sadhan bhajan, that is, the practice of devotional service. Nevertheless, the rain cloud of Srimad Mahaprabhu's mercy thoroughly nourishes a practitioner's sadhan bhakti in such a way as to cause prema bhakti to quickly awaken in him. In this invocation verse, the revered author has described the mighty influence of the unrestrained Mādhurya Kadambini. Its first influence is Hridvipre Navabhakti Sasya Vitatehe Sanjeevani. That is, the rain clouds of Mahaprabhu's mercy thoroughly bestow life-giving energy upon the new sprouts of bhakti, or upon the 9 aspects of bhakti, Navada Bhakti, that have awakened in the soil of the sadhaka's heart. Like a nectarous shower, the rainfall from a row of monsoon clouds rejuvenates crops such as corn, though surely some seed or root, something of it, must have already existed. However, Srimad Mahaprabhu's mercy in the form of the row of rain clouds itself plants seed of bhakti in the heart of the living entities. hearts that are barren and devoid of seed-like or root-like bhakti sanskaras, or impressions in the heart made from the previous performance of bhakti. Then, it not only makes those seeds sprout, form fresh shoots, and bloom with flowers, but it makes the fruit of prema appear. Upon obtaining the fully ripened fruit of prema, the life of the living entity becomes successful and blessed. Here, the meaning of Hridvapre is the field of the heart. The heart is the birthplace of bhakti, the foundation, that place from which longings arise and into which they again merge is called the heart or Hridaya. Despite the heart being inert and incognizant, it possesses, by the will of Bhagwan, the potential for pure, cognizant bhakti to arise within it. A pure heart is like a fertile field, but just as barren, pebbly, or rocky soil cannot yield any crops, so bhakti cannot appear in a heart that is hardened by argument, doubt, and reductionism. Ordinary practical knowledge may appear by means of mundane intelligence, but such intelligence is not the birthplace of bhakti. Thus, it is seen that an unintelligent child who has no knowledge may go on to become a person of absolute faith or a high-class devotee as a natural consequence of his samskaras, either from his past lives or from his recent activities. Conversely, a greatly intelligent person may be an atheist. Thus, it is certainly the heart that is the birthplace of bhakti, not the mind or intelligence. This is the purport of the words Hrid Vapre. Here the words Nav Bhakti should be understood either as Nav Udit or newly awakened tender devotion, or as Navadha Bhakti, the ninefold system of bhakti, which begins with Shravan and Kirtan and which has been described in Śrīmad Bhagavatam. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pad Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atmanivedanam. The ninefold system of bhakti is comprised of hearing about, chanting, and remembering Bhagwan's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes, serving his feet, worshipping him, praying to him, being his servant, being his friend, and submitting one's very self to him. Despite there being many other limbs of devotional service, Navadha Bhakti is truly the best sadhan to bring about the awakening of prema. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has said, Bhajaner Madhya Shreshth Navavidha Bhakti Krishna Prem Krishna Dite Dhare Mahashakti Tar Madhya Sarva Shreshth Nam Sankirtan Nir Aparādhe Nam Laile Pai Prem Dhan. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit Ant Leela 4.70-71. Of the various processes of bhajan, 9 types of bhakti are the best, for they have the great potency to bestow Krishna Prema and Sri Krishna. Out of these 9 practices, chanting the names of Bhagwan, Nam Sankirtan, is best of all. If one performs Nam Sankirtan free from offences, he will certainly attain the most valuable wealth of Prema. The very life energy of this ninefold practice of bhakti comes from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, which is likened to a charming row of clouds. The 9 kinds of bhakti just mentioned are endowed with the great power to cause pure love for Krishna or Krishna Prema to appear, as well as to grant service to him. Among these 9 practices, Bhagwan's Nam Sankirtan is best of all. If one performs Nam Sankirtan while avoiding anarthas such as offences, then Nam Sankirtan will very quickly and easily grant the enormous wealth of Prema. This is because the name of the Lord and the Lord who is addressed by his name, Nam or Nami, are constitutionally identical. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the very first to bestow the completely novel gift of Nam Sankirtan upon the world. He is personally proclaimed Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. May the congregational chanting of Shri Krishna's holy name be supremely triumphant. Shri Shiksha Ashtak 1. And Navvida Bhakti Purna Nam Haite Hai. Navvida Bhakti is perfectly accomplished by uttering the holy name of Shri Bhagwan. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 15.107. Moreover, it is mentioned that in the absence of Sri Harinam, the aforementioned ninefold practice of bhakti is incomplete. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally practiced Sri Harinam Sankirtan and also propagated it everywhere, and by doing so, he instructed all living entities in the universe to do the same. In this way, through Nam Sankirtan, he has rendered Navada Bhakti complete and capable of granting the fruit of prema. Hence, the revered author describes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy as the Madhurya Kadambini, which causes the life energy to flow through the crop-like ninefold system of bhakti. Here, a question may arise. As long as there exists an impulse within the field of sadhaka's heart to selfishly enjoy, continuously broiling him in intense passion, where is there any possibility of the extremely soft and delicate disposition to engage in devotional service awakening? In reply, the most worshipful author describes a second mighty influence of the cloud bank of intense sweetness, or Madhurya Kadambini, which is the embodiment of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. That is, when a row of rain clouds fills the sky, even before rainfall, a pleasant, cooling breeze begins to blow. Simply by that, the fierce heat of summer is easily dissipated, and the bodies of all living entities become nicely cooled, both within and without. The flames of these three kinds of miseries, born of the lustful impulses within the sadhaka's heart, are millions upon millions of times more blazing than the severe heat of summer. However, like the breeze before the rain, the initial influence of the cloud bank of Sri Chaitanya's mercy, even before a downpour, refreshes and cools the sadhaka's scorching in the flames of sensual desire, both externally and internally. Not to speak of material desires and impulses, it dispels even a scent of the desire for liberation from the heart of the sadhakas and fills it with the affectionate desire to serve Sri Krishna. Aho, glorious is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Those people who do not have even one iota of connection with yoga, meditation or dhyana, the uttering of mantra or japa, penance or tapa, renunciation or tyaga, adherence to codes of conduct or niyama, recitation of the Vedas, proper behavior or sadachar, and who, alas, do not even desist from forbidden, sinful actions are today, due to the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose heart is full of the essence of compassion, clapping their hands together and plundering the crest jewels of all goals of life, Mahaprema, which Brahma, Shiva, Narada and others ardently seek. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita 6. In extreme jubilation, the revered and worshipful author describes the third awe-inspiring, mighty influence of the cloud bank of Sri Chaitanya's mercy, Vishvapago Ullasini. During a downpour in the rainy season, a row of dense clouds fills the rivers with profuse rain, causing them to swell with big currents. Those rivers submerge both their banks with flooding waters and rush forth with tremendous power to meet the ocean. Likewise, at the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's descent, the shower of the great Madhurya Kadambini of his mercy rained upon the entire universe throughout the performance of Sri Krishna Nam Sankirtan. Thus, within the universe, the river-like devotees were flooded with prema, causing intense waves of sattvika and vyabhichari ecstasies to arise within them. Everyone throughout the universe was carried away by this flood of prema, swept along with great force in the mighty rapids towards the ocean of completely ambrosial rasa, the ocean of Sri Krishna Prema. The most munificent Sachidanand Sri Gaurahari and his dearmost companions bestowed prema, nay, not bestowed, recklessly distributed prema, such that there was a mighty flood. In that flood, those who were worthy recipients and those who were not, both women and men, children and youth, gentlemen and rogues, the lame, the crippled, and the blind, were all drowned. Even the ferocious animals in the forest, as well as the Mayavadis, adherents of the path of fruitive actions, false logicians, blasphemers, and hypocrites, who resembled tigers, lions, bears, and so forth, could not remain unaffected. The effects are perceived throughout the world even today. In alcohol-addicted carnivorous, atheistic, materialistic nations, thousands and thousands of men and women and young boys and girls with tulsi beads around their necks and divine tilak upon their foreheads are, with both hands raised, being carried by the waves of Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. This indeed is all the directly perceivable result of the Madhurya Kadambini, the form of Śrīmad Mahaprabhu's mercy. Presenting himself as utterly insignificant and worthless, the revered author at the end of this invocation verse is praying for Śrīmad Mahaprabhu's causeless mercy. May the unbridled cloud bank of great sweetness, Madhurya Kadambini, the form of the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even from far away, make my heart, which is like a dry tree in the arid desert, flow with rasa. During a downpour in the monsoon season, heavy clouds blanket the earth and shower torrents of rain upon her. In the desert, however, this kind of rainfall does not occur. Only a tiny vestige of cloud barely drizzles once in a while, and even then in the distance. Due to his mood of feeling himself to be utterly low, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura thought of himself as dry, withered tree in the desert soil very far from the cloud bank of Śrīmad Mahaprabhu's mercy. Hence his prayer, O immensely influential Madhurya Kadambini, you are the embodiment of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. Even though you are situated a great distance away, and even though I am a dry-hearted, dull-headed, and extremely worthless soul, still I beseech you to infuse this withered soul with bhakti rasa, Shri Krishna's Madhurya rasa, and saturate him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's most favored object of mercy, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura, who is wealthy with prema and most elevated in every respect, is giving instructions on the method of Nam Sadhan, or the practice of chanting the holy name, which bestows Nama Prema, or pure love for the holy name. Such a prayer exhibits the natural humility that is characteristic of Vaishnavas and that befits them. Prema cannot exist without humility, and humility cannot exist without prema. If the practitioner ardently longs for Krishna Bhakti Rasa, the sweet humors of devotion to Krishna, he must have natural feelings of humility and insignificance. But such humility is impossible without the mercy of the most munificent Sri Chaitanya Deva. Śrīmad Mahaprabhu personally told both Sri Swarup Damodar and Sri Rai Ramananda, Je Rupe Loile Naam Prema Upajaye, Tar Lakshan Shloka Suno Swarup Ramarai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit, Antalila 2020. O Swarup Damodar, O Rai Ramananda, here the criteria that is symptomatic of one engaging in the process of Sri Harinama, by which prema becomes awakened in the heart. Trinadapi Shunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanyaha Sada Harihi. Shri Shikshashtakam 3. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Antalila 20.21. This means that if one cherishes a desire to obtain Krishna Prema, it is imperative to always and forever perform Sri Harinam Sankirtan, feeling even more insignificant and worthless than grass, following the kind and tolerant manner of a tree, expecting no respect for oneself and giving proper and due honor to others. Text 2. Special prayer to obtain divine blessings. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. The most elevated saints or Mahājans of former times also accepted the shelter of Bhakti Devi. Now, however, by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's most dear associate, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, people who have obtained real intelligence are directly perceiving Bhakti in its form of Bhakti rasa. I offer my heartfelt obeisances unto Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī again and again. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. The essential nature of the living entity is that of a servant of Krishna. However, since time without beginning, he has forgotten Bhagwan and has thus been swallowed up by the deluding potency Maya. Consequently, he has fallen into the cycle of birth and death and is burned by the three kinds of torment. Sometimes, as a result of his own deeds, he becomes a demigod in the heavenly kingdom or a ruler on earth, and sometimes he becomes a subject. Sometimes he is in the priestly class or Vipra, and sometimes he is in the artisan class Shudra. Sometimes he is happy and sometimes he is sad. Sometimes he takes birth in the species of plants, sometimes as an aquatic, sometimes as a bird or beast, and sometimes in the demoniac Daitya or Danav races. He wanders throughout so many species in his search for happiness, yet nowhere does he find actual happiness. When the supremely compassionate Bhagwan observes his own dear living entity's wretched condition, his heart melts. He descends in the form of the timeless Vedic scriptures. He manifests in his various forms his own personal avatars, and he has his own dear companions descend to the world as ācāryas or exemplary teachers. In this way, by giving instructions on bhakti, he bestows eternal happiness upon the forgetful, stray living entities and engages them in service to him. Indeed, only devotion to the Supreme Lord or Bhagavad Bhakti can make the averse and unhappy living entities eternally fulfilled, because by this they attain him. The Vedas, Shrutis, Smritis, Puranas, and so forth enunciate this perfect conclusion in unison. It is never possible for the living entity to secure his permanent auspiciousness through fruitive work or karma, the pursuit of knowledge or jnana, mysticism or yoga, penance, tapa, and other processes. Bhakti revenam nayati, bhakti revenam darshati, bhakti vasha purusho, bhakti reva bhuyasi. From Madhurya Shruti, quoted in Madhva Bhashya, Sutra 3.3.53. It is only bhakti or devotion that brings the living entity close to Bhagwan. Bhakti alone enables the living entity to see Bhagwan face to face. That Supreme Person, Bhagwan, is actually controlled by bhakti. Bhakti is superior to all else. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha guru tasyate kathitahi artha prakashante mahatmana. Shvetashvatar Upanishad 6.23. All the confidential purports of the Vedas are fully revealed to that great soul who has the same transcendental devotion to his Gurudev as he has to Sri Bhagwan. Anandamayo Abhyasat. Vedanta Sutra 1.1.12. The word Anandamaya, or replete with bliss, used in Vedic literature must refer to the Supreme Spirit, for it is repeatedly used to describe him. Save punsam paro dharmo yato bhaktiradhokshaje. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1.2.6. The topmost dharma of human life is devotion to the transcendent Bhagwan Shri Krishna. Bhagwan Brahma Katsyena Trinam Vikshye Manishaya Tad Advayasat Kutastho Ratir Atmanyato Bhavet. How can there be any benefit for the living entities who, oblivious to the Lord, have fallen into the cycle of repeated birth and death in material existence? Preoccupied with this question, Sri Brahma, who knows the fundamental truths regarding the Lord, thought long to find a solution. With resolute attention, he scrutinized all the Vedas 3 times, and by his intelligence he concluded that the topmost perfection of religion is that by which one can obtain exclusive love for Bhagwan Shri Krishna, the supersoul of all existence. Through scriptural statements such as these, the immutable, perfect conclusion is being thoroughly established. It is only by Bhagavad Bhakti that the living entity's distress completely ceases and he obtains actual happiness. This bhakti does not rely upon any practice or sadhan, such as fruitive work, karma, mysticism, yoga, or the pursuit of knowledge, jnana, to manifest, nor does it ever rely upon place, time, or eligibility. Bhakti, akin to all-powerful, self-manifesting Bhagavad Tattva, is a self-manifesting, all-powerful truth. This is affirmed because she, Bhakti, is none other than a special function of Bhagwan's internal potency or Swarup Shakti. Hence, the exalted souls who know this secret have taken full, exclusive shelter of Bhakti and have propagated it. In truth, a Mahājana is exclusively one who has accepted the shelter of supremely pure devotion to Bhagwan. Among these exalted souls, Vaishnava-ācāryas such as Sri Nārada, Sri Prahlāda, the Pandavas, Sri Uddhava, Sri Śukadeva Gosvāmī, Sri Yamunacārya, Sri Nath Muni, Sri Gauḍīya Devi, Sri Rāmānuja-acārya, and Sri Madhvacārya have all accepted exclusive shelter of Bhakti. Through their personal behavior and precepts, they have proclaimed Bhakti's greatness throughout the world. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura, who is well versed in all scriptures and fully conversant with rasa, realized this esoteric mystery. By the term Mahājanas in text 2 above, he is referring to the foremost bhaktas of previous times, like Sri Nārada. However, before the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it was not even known that rasa is the intrinsic nature or swarupa of bhakti. Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, the special object of the supremely compassionate Rasik Shekhara, Sri Chaitanya Deva's mercy, composed sacred literatures like Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu and Ujjwal Neelmani, which established for the first time that rasa is the intrinsic nature of bhakti. The most fortunate persons in the world are those who have obtained real intelligence from Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, are experiencing the rasa swarupa of bhakti and are causing others to experience it as well. Only by the mercy of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī is it possible to directly realize that the intrinsic form of bhakti is rasa. If we were to go on deliberating upon these words of our most worshipful Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura, then this book would become considerably more voluminous. Hence, it is sufficient simply to mention here that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Rasik Shekhara, Vrajendra Nandan Sri Krishna himself. As Rasik Shekhara or the topmost connoisseur of rasa, his purpose was to taste the essence of Mahabhava-swarupini Srimati Radhika's sublime, radiantly pure prema rasa, and as Param Karuna, the most compassionate, his purpose was to distribute the wealth of the path of spontaneous devotion, Raga Marga Bhakti, to the world. For these purposes, he accepted Sri Radha's mood and luster and descended in the form of Shachinandan Sri Gaur Hari. In the previous exceptional Kali Yuga, almost 1000 cycles of the 4 yugas ago, Vrajendra Nandan Sri Krishna descended as Sri Gauranga and bestowed his rasa-laden bhakti, which is rarely attained even by personalities like Sri Brahma. Since that particular Kali Yuga, many avatars of Bhagwan and many Vaishnava ācāryas have advented. But until the recent re-advent of Sri Gauranga, none of them offered rasa-laden bhakti to the living entities of this world. Not to speak of bestowing such bhakti, they could not even give its true definition. Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī is the dear companion of Sri Gaur Hari, he who is adorned with Sri Radha's mood and complexion. In the pastimes of Vraja, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī is Sri Roop Manjari, chief among Srimati Radhika's intimate maidservants. Indeed, to propagate that bhakti of Vraja, which is laden with unnat ujjval rasa, or the most elevated humors of transcendental amour, Sri Rūpa Manjari has descended within Sri Gaura's pastimes in the form of Sri Rūpa Gosvāmī. In his Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has unveiled the secret. As Sri Bhagwan generated the potency to create in the heart of Grandfather Brahma at the beginning of creation and thus created this universe, so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made his special potency flow in the heart of his own dear Sri Rupa and through him propagated the topics of Sri Radha Krishna's transcendental playful pastimes in Vraja, topics that had been lost by the influence of time. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 19.117, it is stated, Shri Roop Hridaya Prabhu Shakti Sancharila Sarva Tattva Nirupya Praveen Korila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu infused the heart of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī with transcendental power and thus made him fully expert and experienced in discerning all tattva. Also, Śrīla Narottam Das Thakur has written in his Prema Bhakti Chandrika, Shri Chaitanya Mano Abhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rūpa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. When will Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, who has established within this world the mission to fulfill the innermost desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, personally give me shelter at his lotus feet? To again manifest Vraja Bhakti saturated with unnat ujjval rasa upon the earth is indeed the innermost heart's desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By composing fundamental bhakti literatures like Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu and Ujjval Neelmani, and by teaching them, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī has established the innermost heart's desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in every way. What has emerged from the heart of the poet Sri Madhva about the glories of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī is indeed deeply moving. Yam Kali Rūpa Sharir na Dharat Mahanidhi Kuthrik Kaun Kapat Ughadat Neer Kshir Hansan Kaun Prithak Kari Payat. Had Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī not appeared in this age of Kali, who would have opened the doors to the great storehouse of Vraja Prema? Neer Kshir Hansan Pan Vidhayan Kaun Prithak Kari Payat. Ko Sab Tyaji Bhaji Vrindavan Ko Sab Grantha Virichit. Who but Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī could have extracted the essence of the scriptures in the same way that a swan separates water from milk? Who could have abandoned everything to perform bhajan in Vrindavana? Who would have written such scriptures? Jab pitu ban phool phalat nana vidh Manu raji aravind So madhukar binu pan kon janat vidyaman kari bandh. He was a honeybee amid varieties of blossoming yellow forest flowers and mind-enchanting lotuses. Without that honeybee, who could have known the art of drinking the nectar present yet confined within those flowers? Ko janat Mathura Vrindavan, ko janat Vrajaneet, ko janat Radha Madhavrati, ko janat Soi Preet. Who could have understood the glories of Mathura and Vrindavana? Who could have fathomed the intricacies of Raja? Who could have understood the love between Sri Radha and Sri Madhav? Who could have known that love? Jākar charan prasade sakal jan, gai gavai sukh pavat, charan kamale sharnagat madho, tav mahima uralagat. By the mercy of his lotus feet, all souls may sing and inspire others to sing about the glories of the love of Sri Radha Madhav, thereby attaining true joy. O Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, having surrendered at your lotus feet, may this Madhav Das be able to comprehend your unlimited glories. In times prior to Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, the symptoms of bhakti were delineated in Shandilya Sutra. Sa paranuraktir ishvare, that is, the symptom of bhakti is described as deep loving attachment to Parameshvara. In Pancharatra it is said, Sarvapadhir vinirumuktam tat paritvena nirmalam rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyate. Quoted in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1.1.12. Absolutely pure service to the master of the senses Rishikesha, performed through all one's senses solely for his delight and completely devoid of all external designations, is called bhakti. There is also a description elsewhere in scripture. Ahetukya avyavhita ya bhakti purushottame. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 3:29-12. This means that the symptom of Nirguna Bhakti is that the mind flows towards the Absolute Supreme Being at every moment, like an unbroken stream of oil. However, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī has presented an incomparable definition of bhakti that not only includes all the above mentioned symptoms but is replete with further special characteristics. His definition is profoundly wonderful and beautiful. Annabhilashita shunyam Gyan karmadhyanavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktiruttama. Sri Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1.1.11. That perpetual endeavor for the sake of Sri Krishna that is free from all kinds of desires other than the desire to serve him, that is eclipsed by the pursuit of monistic knowledge, fruitive work, and so on, that is performed exclusively out of loving affection for him, through all physical, mental, or verbal endeavors, and through all emotions, flowing without interruption like an unbroken stream of oil, is called Uttama Bhakti. Each and every stage of bhakti is included within the definition of Uttama Bhakti, beginning from Shraddha, the first step in bhakti, through Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Rati or Bhava, and beyond this, to Prema, Sneha, Mana, Pranay, Raga, Anuraga, Bhava, Mahabhava, Rudha Bhava, Adhirudha Bhava, Mohan, and up to Madhanakya Mahabhava. Additionally, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī presented with great skill, charming poetry, and subtle analysis the devotional proclivity of the heart, beginning with the preliminary steps of bhakti, from Shraddha to Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, and then Bhava, and the evolutionary sequence of that proclivity through the various transformations of Prema, from Sneha to Mana, Pranay, Rag, Anurag, Bhav, Mahabhav, and so on. He delineated Sthāyi Bhava, or permanent emotion, and gave a beautiful portrayal of the completely miraculous and supremely relishable state of Bhakti Rasa, which is attained when the Sthāyi Bhava combines with the ingredients of Rasa, such as vibhava, or that which stimulates rati, one's inherent relationship with Krishna; anubhava, or visible actions that illustrate the spiritual emotions situated within the heart; sattvic bhava, 8 symptoms of spiritual ecstasy arising exclusively from Vishuddha Sattva; and Vyabhichari Bhava, the internal transitory emotions which arise like waves from the ocean of Sthāyi Bhava, enhance it and then plunge once again into the Sthāyi Bhava. A beautiful glimpse of all this can be found in his celebrated composition Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Being empowered by Srimad Mahaprabhu's mercy, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī also proved that the spotless and exceedingly purifying Gauḍīya Vaiṣṇava method of bhajan is established on a very strong rasa-laden foundation. His composition has, on its own merit, become unfadingly immortalized in the history of bhakti literature. It is considered the encyclopedia of all conclusive truths regarding bhakti rasa and is revered as the finest, fully ripened fruit of the wish-fulfilling tree of Gauḍīya rasa literature. The ācāryas prior to him were unable to do so comprehensively, analyze bhakti ras tattva, and certainly could not establish bhakti as ras swarupa, or the very nature of transcendental loving mellows. In the kalpa, or day and night of Lord Brahma, that had elapsed since the last advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, accounts of Sri Radha Krishna's loving pastimes had all but vanished. At the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's manifest presence, by his inspiration and mercy, the potency of mercy flowed through Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, by which he recovered those revelations and again established them within this world, thus fulfilling the deep desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vrindavaniyam raskeli vartam कालेन लुप्ताम निज शक्ति मुत्कः संचार्य रूपे व्यतनोत पुनः सा प्रभुर विधौ प्रागिव लोक सृष्टिम. श्री चैतन्य चरितामृत मध्य लीला 19:1. At the beginning of creation, by making his own potency flow through the heart of Brahma, Sri Bhagwan created and expanded the worlds. In the same way, by eagerly making his own potency flow through the heart of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, Śrīla Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again expounded and spread throughout the world the playful rasa-laden topics of Raja, which had been forgotten over time. The purport is that in one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manvantaras, or reigns of Manu. Shri Krishna appears in the 7th Manvantara at the end of the Dwapar Yuga, in the 28th Chatur Yuga, or cycle of 4 ages, and enacts his pastimes in Raja. And about 5,000 years after that, in Kali Yuga, he accepts the mood and luster of Sri Radha and appears in the form of Satchidanand Sri Gaur Hari, tasting the sweetness of Sri Radha's prema and propagating Vraja prema. Vraja prema was last disseminated in the Kalpa prior to this, at the time of Sri Gaur's Leela. For one day and night of Swayambhu Brahma, or almost 8,000 yugas or ages, this Vraja prema vanished, because apart from Sri Gauranga Deva, there is no avatar of Bhagwan or Acharya who could propagate the highly esoteric and secret prema of Vraja. Throughout the very long period during which these esoteric discourses on the playful rasa of Vraja remained forgotten, Sri Chaitanya Deva's eagerness to propagate them intensified to the utmost limit. That is why he channeled his potency through the heart of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī. Shri Rūp Hridaya Prabhu Shakti Sancharila Sarva Tattva Nirupiye Praveen Korila. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita 19.117. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu infused the heart of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī with transcendental power and thus made him fully expert and experienced in discerning all tattvas. The author, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura, concludes by explaining that the ras swarupa of bhakti can only be experienced by Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī's mercy, and that without his mercy there is no possibility of entering bhakti. This is the highest truth. Text 3. 3a. Sri Bhagwan, the intrinsic form of rasa, is the shelter even of Brahma, and he descends of his own accord. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. In Taittiriya Upanishad 2.5.1, it is stated that Brahma Puchham Pratishthaha. It is from the supremely blissful personality of Godhead, Sri Bhagwan, that Brahm, the tail, metaphorically, of Sri Bhagwan, obtains its substratum or basis. Therefore, Sri Bhagwan is a far superior truth than Brahma. Further on, in this same Taittiriya Upanishad 2.7.1, it is also indicated that Parabrahma Bhagwan is composed of rasa, raso vaisa, rasam hi evayam, labdhva nandi bhavati. Sri Bhagwan is the very form of rasa or rasvarupa. Simply upon attaining him, the living entity becomes endowed with pure rapture. Śrīmad Bhagavatam, the essence of all Vedanta and the crown jewel among all sources of knowledge, has described how Param Brahma Bhagwan is full of rasa, and that none but Shri Krishna is that Rasvarupa. This is so because, as explained in Śrīmad Bhagavatam 10.43.17, he is the object of all 12 rasas. Malla nam ashnir nrinam naravara strinam smaro murtimana. Bhagwan Shri Krishna was simultaneously perceived as thunder by the wrestlers, as the best of men by men, as Cupid personified by women, and so forth. Moreover, in Śrīmad Bhagavad Gita 14.27, Shri Bhagwan has himself said, Brahmano hi pratishtha aham. I, in fact, am the basis or shelter of Brahma. By these words, Bhagwan Shri Krishna has personally indicated that he is beyond the highest tattva or paratpar tattva and is the embodiment of rasa or rasa swarupa. The supremely pure existence or Vishuddha Sattva Maya, the beginningless deity or Anadi Vigraha, Vrajendra Nandan Shama Sundara Shri Krishna, being adorned with his name, form, qualities and pastimes, is in fact Rasvarupa or the personification of rasa. His infant, childhood and adolescent pastimes all indicate this, because he is fully independent of all controls and indifferent to any other cause. By his own sweet will, he reveals himself to humans, especially his premi bhaktas, in the faculty of their heart, in their external senses like hearing and sight, and in their internal senses, their mind and intellect. To bestow mercy upon the living entities of this universe and to fulfill the prema-laden desires of the bhaktas, Sri Krishna, although unborn, advents of his own accord as Sri Krishna in the Yadu dynasty and as Sri Rama in the Raghu dynasty. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. The testimony of Shruti or the Vedas is certainly the best of all Shabda Pramana or authoritative evidence revealed through sound. To reveal Bhakti Tattva, that divine substance of the principle of Godhead that is beyond inert matter, self-manifested and fully laden with transcendental bliss, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura, quoting evidence from the revealed scriptures, is expressing the faultless and unerring authority of Shruti or Shabda Pramana. That which helps bring about actual knowledge of an object is known as Pramana or evidence. Śrīmad Bhagavatam has mentioned 4 types of Pramana: revealed Vedic knowledge, direct sense perception, inference, and the wisdom of tradition. Shruti pratyaksham ehtiyam anumanam chatushtayam pramaneshva anvasthanad vikalpat sa virajyate. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 11:19-17. Among all kinds of evidence, 4. Revealed Vedic knowledge, that is Shruti, direct sense perception, that is Pratyaksha, the wisdom of tradition, that is Atiya, and inference, that is Anumana, enable a person to give up his attachment to the dualities of material nature. 3 of these 4 kinds of pramana, namely direct sense perception, inference, and the wisdom of tradition, may be prone to error. However, there is no possibility of error being present in scriptures spoken by Bhagwan. As the origin of such Shrutis is Swayam Bhagwan himself, they are devoid of faults arising from misinterpretation, careless or hasty judgment, deception, ill-equipped senses, and so on. Also, in Manusmriti it says, Pratyakshan cha anumanam cha shastram cha vividhagamam trayam suviditam karyam dharma shuddhim abhipsata. Manu 12.105. It is absolutely compulsory for anyone who wants to know the principle of dharma to be conversant in 3 subjects: direct sense perception, inference, and the Smritis, which are based on the Vedas and various complementary Vedic literatures. From among the 4 kinds of pramana previously mentioned, Sri Madhvacharya has adopted only 3. Pratyakshe antar bhaved yasmad aitiyam ten deshikaha pramanam trividham prakhyat tatra mukhya shrutir bhaved. Pramay Ratnavali 9.2. Since the wisdom of tradition passed on by word of mouth exists within the pramana of direct sense perception, the best of guides, Madhva Muni, has only acknowledged 3 types of pramana. Among them, revealed Vedic knowledge or Aparushe Vedavakya or Vedic statements with no mortal origin is certainly considered the principal form of pramana. Nevertheless, our Gauḍīya Vaisṇavas have acknowledged 10 types of pramana. Śrīla Jiva Gosvāmī Pad has said in Tattva Sandarbha Sarva Samvadini that although 10 kinds of pramana are mentioned, first, Pratyaksha, that is direct perception; second, Anumana, that is inference; third, Arsha, that is statements of the sages; fourth, Upamana, that is comparison; fifth, Artha-patti, that is presumption; sixth, Abhava, that is absence; seventh, Sambhav, that is probability; eighth, Aitiya, that is hearsay; ninth, Cheshta, that is gesturing; and 10th, Shabda, that is Vedic testimony. Only Aparushe Veda is free from the faults of misinterpretation, error from careless or hasty judgment, the tendency to cheat, ill-equipped senses, and so on. Truly, the principal form of evidence is Shabda Pramana in the form of the Vedas. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is also said, Pramaner madhye shruti praman pradhan, shruti je mukhyarth kahe, sei se praman. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit, Madhya Leela 6.135. Among all forms of evidence, the evidence of Shruti is the most prominent. Indeed, the primary direct meaning of any statement of Shruti is certainly the most essential evidence. We will briefly outline the 10 kinds of pramana. First, Pratyaksha or direct perception. Information received by means of the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, namely the eyes, ears, nose, tongue and skin, is called Pratyaksha Pramana. This type of pramana is not completely dependable because our seeing, hearing or activities may be faulty if we are affected by illness, madness or inattentiveness. The reliability of Pratyaksha Pramana depends on the proficiency of the senses among other factors. In the absence of the proficiency of the senses, one cannot gain actual knowledge of an object by means of Pratyaksha Pramana. At times, there are flaws in our knowledge of objects that are seen with the eyes, heard with ears, or gained through the faculties of our other senses. For example, when our eyes catch sight of a lengthy rope, we may mistake it for a serpent, and in seeing an empty oyster shell, we may mistake it for silver. Second, anumana or inference. That which is inferred after observing a particular phenomenon is called anuman praman. For instance, by observing smoke, it is to be understood that fire is present. However, this praman is not dependable. Occasionally, smoke is sighted on a mountain even when there is no fire. Sometimes, when water is poured onto fire, smoke rises from it, even though the fire has already been extinguished. So, although there is smoke, fire is no longer present. Hence, reliable knowledge of an object does not come from anuman praman either. Number 3. Arsh or statements of the sages. The assertions of the enlightened rishis are called arsh pramanas. However, upon some deliberation it becomes evident that the opinions of the numerous sages vary, and therefore their statements are not always authoritative. The Mahabharata mentions Tarko apratishta shrutiyo vibhinna Nasav rishir yasya matam na bhinnam. Mahabharata Van Parva 313.117. Logical reasoning is never conclusive, and unless someone's opinion about the many different sections of the Vedas do not diverge from the opinions of others, he will never become famous as a real sage or rishi. There are many kinds of rishis, and along with them are their distinct theories. Thus, their theories are not always dependable. Number 4. Upamana or comparison. Upon examining one object, the knowledge that arises about a second similar object is called upamana praman. For instance, salt crystals happen to be white. So, someone may say, alum crystal is just like salt crystal. However, this is not complete understanding of alum crystals, which have qualities distinct from those of salt crystals. Hence, upamana pramana is also not completely dependable. Number 5. Arthapatti or presumption. An inescapable inference about an extremely well-known phenomenon, or in other words, the logical inferred cause that is accepted when no other observable cause of a phenomena is found, is called arthapatti. For instance, if a man does not eat in the day, he will not be seen eating. At the same time, it is apparent that the man is quite healthy and strong. So, if he does not eat in the daytime, then surely he must eat at night. Such praman is called arthapatti. However, this arthapatti praman is not dependable either, because by the mercy of a particular demigod or by utilizing special herbs, a man may still remain healthy and stout even after passing some days without any food. Number 6. Abhav or absence. An object that is not in proximity to the eyes, ears, or other knowledge-acquiring senses, or an object that is far away from them, cannot be perceived by the senses. That is why this type of pramana has been called abhava, proof by absence. For instance, someone on one side of a high wall will not be able to see an object lying on the other side. They think that because it is not on their side of the wall, it does not exist. That is why some refer to this non-perception as abhav praman. Number 7. Sambhav or probability. The number 100 is surely to be found somewhere within thousands of numbers. The notion of any such likelihood, when it arises within the intelligence, is called Sambhav Pramana. Number 8. Aitiya or tradition. This refers to traditional historical accounts or rumors, the source of which can no longer be traced. Hearing through the grapevine about whatever is largely acceptable in society is called Aitiya Pramana. Number 9. Cheshta or gesturing. The pramana by which one's knowledge of an object or of quantities, measurements and so forth that is attained by seeing, for example, numbers of fingers raised, is called cheshta pramana. In ascertaining the absolute reality, neither atya nor cheshta have any authority. Number 10. Shabda or Vedic testimony. The dictums of the scriptures that were not authored by man, āpaurishe shastravachan, are called Shabda Pramana. They also go by the name Aptavachan or authoritative or reliable declarations. Writings that were originally composed by certain exceptional individuals are called Paurishe Shastra or scriptures originating from man, while those that have not been written by any such mortal but manifested by Bhagwan are called Apaurishe Shastra or scriptures not originating from man. In the latter, misrepresentation, error from careless or hasty judgment, deception or deceitful ambition, mistakes and so on, either from inattentiveness of the mind or from incompetence of the senses, do not exist. There is no possibility of any imperfection or any mistake anywhere in the words of Sri Bhagwan or in the words of the Vedas, because Bhagwan is all-knowing, all-powerful, overflowing with auspiciousness and the supreme abode of compassion. Consequently, as these words are devoid of all faults, Shabda Pramana has been celebrated as the best evidence of all and unerring. Shabda Pramana is the self-evident Praman, dependable and itself independent. Therefore, to know the transcendent, rasa-laden absolute truth, Shabda Pramana, that is the Pramana of the Vedas, is unquestionably the best of all Pramanas. Here, the following question may be asked. Which scriptures are Shabda Pramana or Apaurishe Shastra? In the answer to this, it has been said, Rig Yaju Sam Arthavascha Bharatam Pancharatrakam Mulya Ramayanam Chaiva Shastram Ityabhidhiyate Yatvanukul me tasya Tach Shastram Prakirtitam Ato Anya Vistaro Neva Shastram Kuvartma Tat. Skand Purana, quoted by Sri Madhvacharya in his commentary on Vedanta Sutra 2.1.6. The four Vedas, namely Rig, Yajur, Sama and Atharva, the Mahabharata, the original Ramayana and the Pancharatra are all bona fide, eternal scriptures or Sat Shastra. Literatures that are in line with these have also been included within Sat Shastra. Those literatures disparate with these are not counted as Shastra. According to Maitreya Upanishad 6.32 and Brihad Aranyak Upanishad 2.4.10, O Maitreya, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda, the classic Vedic histories, Mahabharata and Ramayana, and the 18 Puranas headed by Śrīmad Bhagavatam are all exhalation of the all-pervading Param Brahma. In other words, they have been manifested from his breath. Hence, they were not authored by any man, because they emanated from the exhalation of Bhagwan. They are called Apaurishe Shastra. Such literatures are called Shabda Pramana, and through them, complete knowledge of the inherently substantial nature of Paratattva Vastu, the truly abiding reality, Parabrahma Bhagwan, can be obtained. In the present age, Buddhism, atheism, materialism, and numerous disparate doctrines devoid of spiritual reality remain in vogue throughout the world. The principal cause of this is disdain for Shabda Pramana, or an absence of faith in Vedic Shastras, and lack of thoughtful study and reflection thereof. The Vedas are the self-evident Pramana. Other Pramanas can certainly be authoritative, but only with the help of Shruti Pramana. However, the statements of Shruti, the self-evident Pramana, need no help from the other 9 Pramanas. Atheism and various other doctrines remain persistently in fashion at present, and this is brought about by disrespect of the Vedas and hostility to Bhagwan. It is from these, in fact, that the misfortune of the world comes about. Some people inquire that since Buddha-deva is an avatar of Bhagwan, can his words and instructions also be regarded as pramana? Śrīla Jiva Gosvāmī answers this question in his Sarva Samvadini. And the purport of that is that although Buddha-deva is Ishvara, neither his words nor his instructions can be accepted as authoritative. This is because the same Shastras that refer to Buddha-deva as Ishvara state that he wrote godless Shastras simply to bewilder the demons. Whatever instructions he presented were meant exclusively for confounding the demoniac, not for ascertaining the highest goal or paramartha. That is why, at the beginning of the secret text, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura establishes the forthcoming subjects of discussion on the basis of Shruti, the best of all, Shabda Pramana. With the words Brahma Puchham Pratishthaha, the Taittiriya Upanishad presents the bliss-laden Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Paramanand Purusha, as the shelter or basis of a Brahma, using the metaphor of his tail, Puchham. In this way, the Shrutis have ascertained the excellence of Bhagwan, who is ontologically laden with rasa or rasvarupa over Brahma. Who is this Rastattva? That Rastattva is Swayam Bhagwan Vrajendra Nandan Sri Shyama Sundar. Śrīmad Bhagavatam, the crown jewel among all Shabda Pramana, states Malla Nam Ashnirnrinam Narvaraha Strinam Smaro Murtimana Gopanam Swajano Astam Kshiti Bhujam Shasta Swapitroho Shishu Mrityur Bhoj Pater Virad Vidusham Tattvam Param Yoginam Vrishninam Paradevateti Vidito Rang Gataha Sa Agrajaha. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 10:43-17. When Bhagwan Sri Krishna entered Kamsa's royal arena along with Sri Baladeva, Kamsa's most powerful wrestlers, headed by Chanur and Mushtika, sized him up as possessing a body more unyielding than a lightning bolt. Ordinary men saw him as the gem of mankind. The women perceived him as Kamadeva, the god of love. The cowherd people identified him as their own kind or bandhu. Other kings saw in him a stern disciplinarian who dispenses justice, and his mother and father perceived him as an infant. He appeared to Kamsa as the bitter end, to the ignorant as the universal form, to the yogis as the supreme truth, and to the Yadavas as their supreme God. Everyone present experienced Sri Krishna according to their own rasa as the embodiment of anger for the wrestlers, amazement for ordinary folk, amorous love for the damsels, fraternity and comedy for the sakhas, gallantry for the notorious kings, nurturance and compassion for parents, fearfulness for Kamsa, repugnance for the foolish, neutrality or serenity for the yogis, and subservience for the Vrishnis. In this way, Vrajendra Nandan Sri Krishna has been described in Śrīmad Bhagavatam as Rasa Swarupa, the intrinsic form of rasa. The Shrutis also state Raso Vaiṣṇava, he is the nectarious rasa. And even in Gita Upanishad, Sri Krishna has clearly admitted Brahmano hi pratishtha aham, I am in fact the basis of Brahma. The purport of this is that without Sri Krishna there is no Brahma. Sri Krishna is truly Param Brahma. Brahma is the radiant effulgence of Sri Krishna's toenails. All Shastras intimate Sri Krishna to be Rasa Swarupa in this way. To delight his own bhaktas by his playful pastimes, that Param Brahma Sri Krishna descends to this world. It is actually through Vishnu and his other incarnations who inherently accompany him by residing in his body that the task of slaying the demons is accomplished. Therefore, it was not Sri Krishna who killed those demons, whose death seems attributable to him. They were actually slain by Vishnu, situated within him. Shri Krishna is Akhil Rasamrit Sindhu, the ocean of all rasa. He has no connection with the slaying of demons. Shri Krishna descends to delight his bhaktas with his playful pastimes to increase their transcendental bliss. While he is manifest, non-devotees do not recognize him and mistake him to be an ordinary man. Kansa, Jarasandha, Duryodhan and Kalyavan were all adversaries of Bhagwan and did not grasp that he is Bhagwan. Duryodhana wanted to make him his prisoner. Jarasandha assailed him 18 times, hoping to strike him down. Pondrik Vasudev, with 2 natural arms and 2 artificial ones, alleged, "I am the real 4-armed Vasudeva. Worship me." These malevolent, demoniac people cannot understand Krishna's identity. Bhagwan Shri Krishna declares in the Gita 4.8, "Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge." I descend to establish religion, to destroy the demons and to protect the devotees. Nonetheless, the ultimate purpose of his advent is to delight his devotees, to taste rasa and to allow others to relish rasa. Thus, surely, he descends of his own sweet will. In this manner, Shri Krishna has been described as Ras Swarupa, the very form of rasa in the Upanishads. But Shri Krishna is not only the embodiment of rasa, he is Rasa Raja, the king of rasa. He is the intrinsic form of not just one rasa, but of the totality of all rasas. He is rasa personified. Leela Shukha says, "Shringar Rasasar Sarvasham." Transcendental amour or Shringar is indeed the king of rasa or its essence. The deity of prema is the Shringar rasa laden Vrajendra Nandan Shyama Sundara Radha Kanta. Jayadev Goswami also says, "Sakhi Shyam Sundar is Shringar personified." It is for this reason that writers of Rasa Shastra say, "The hue of transcendental amour, Shringar, is Shyama, the complexion of a fresh monsoon cloud. Shri Krishna is its deity. It is established by Shruti, Smriti, and so on, that just as Bhagwan Shri Krishna chooses to descend in the dynasty of the Yadus, and Bhagwan Shri Rama in the dynasty of the Raghus, so Bhagwan also manifests within his bhaktas hearing, vision, mind, intellect, and so on. Therefore, the devotees can identify him as Bhagwan, while the non-devotees certainly regard him as an ordinary man. Ataha Shri Krishna Namadi na bhaved grahyam indriyah sevonmukhe hi jivvado swayamev swaratyadaha. Shri Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1.2.234. Therefore, the transcendental names, forms, qualities and pastimes of Shri Krishna cannot be perceived with the gross material senses. They automatically manifest themselves on the tongue and other senses of one in whose heart an eagerness has awakened for the transcendental service of the Lord. 3b. Bhakti Devi is self-manifesting. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Bhakti is Bhagwan's own internal energy or Swarupa Shakti, and like the omnipotent Lord, Bhakti also is self-manifesting. She manifests herself without relying on any additional cause. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1-2-6 states, "Yator bhaktir adhokshaje ahutukya apratihata." Here, Bhagavad Bhakti to Adhokshat Bhagwan, the Supreme Lord who is beyond the approach of the material senses, is said to be the causeless or ahetuki and uninterrupted or apratihata. By this, it is evident that she arises autonomously without any particular cause. Elsewhere in Śrīmad Bhagavatam 11:28, it is stated, "Yadrichaya mat kathadav." Only the mercy of bhakti My own internal energy yields taste for narrations about my pastimes and so forth. These words Mad Bhaktim Cha Yadrichha Śrīmad Bhagavatam 11:20-11 mean the obtainment of bhakti to me is by her own sweet accord, Yadr Ichha. Such statements about the awakening of bhakti being independent and without any particular cause also appear in numerous verses such as Yadr Ichha Vo Pachita. In these statements from Śrīmad Bhagavatam and so forth, the word Yadrichha means acting only in accordance with one's own sweet will. Indeed, the meaning of Yadrichha found in the dictionary in Swairita or doing as one pleases, uncontrolled, independent, or Svecha, that is, of one's own accord. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Bhagwan appears of his own accord within the Yadu dynasty as Sri Krishna, within the Raghu dynasty as Sri Rama, and so on. And again, only by his own volition does he manifest himself or is otherwise perceived in the internal and external senses of the devotees. In the same way, Bhakti, Bhagwan's self-manifesting internal energy, whose intrinsic nature is composed of eternality, cognizance and bliss, that is, Satchidananda, also exhibits herself or is otherwise experienced by her own volition in the internal and external senses of the devotees. She does not depend on any other cause. Like Sri Krishna, Bhakti also is composed of Satchidananda. This is unequivocally described in Gopaluttar Tapani Upanishad 2.95. It says that he who is the condensed form of realized knowledge and bliss, that very Sri Krishna manifests exclusively in Satchidananda Rasa, that is, in Bhakti Yoga. If Bhakti were not composed of eternality, cognizance and bliss, then it would never be possible for her to captivate Bhagwan. At this point, a question may be raised. If Bhakti, being quite the opposite of inert, has the symptom of being self-manifesting and is composed of eternality, cognizance and bliss, then how is she to appear in the sadhaka's inert mind and senses? In answer, it can be said that after a piece of iron is heated intensely within a blazing fire, it obtains qualitative sameness with fire. It takes on the fire's own reddish hue and it acquires the potency to burn. In the same way, by her own power, Bhakti, who is composed of Satchidananda, manifests even in the material senses of the sadhaka, and by destroying the mundanity of those senses, renders them as transcendent as she is. The Swarupa of Param Brahma Bhagwan Sri Krishna is comprised of Sat, that is eternality, Chit, that is cognizance, and Ananda, that is bliss. Three energies manifest from these three aspects. Sandhini, or the energy related to existence, manifests from Sata. Samvit, the energy related to cognizance, manifests from Chitta. And Ahladini, the energy related to pure happiness, manifests from Ananda. Just as any one of the three aspects, namely Sat, Chit or Ananda, cannot be separated from the other two, so also any one of these three energies, Sandhini, Samvit or Ahladini, cannot be disassociated from the other two. Moreover, wherever the internal energy Swarup Shakti manifests, Sandhini, Samvit and Ahladini will simultaneously be present there. Parabrahma Bhagwan, the supreme spiritual entity, is self-manifesting. His spiritual energy or Chit Shakti is also self-manifesting, and as such, the functions of his spiritual energy are also self-manifesting too. That which is self-manifesting reveals not only itself but all else as well, just as the rising sun reveals both itself and the world. The special function of the spiritual energy, which is endowed with the attribute of being self-manifesting and through which Parabrahm specifically reveals his own Swarupa and the transformations of his Swarupa Shakti or intrinsic spiritual energy, is called Vishuddha Sattva or pure existence. Although the three energies, Sandhini, Samvit and Ahladini, coexist within Vishuddha Sattva, the degree to which each energy is expressed is not the same everywhere. Sometimes these three energies are manifest uniformly, and at the other times only one is predominantly expressed. Hence, where there is a predominance of Ahladini Shakti, it is called Ahladini Pradhan Shuddha Sattva, or pure existence predominated by the energy related to pure bliss, or Ahladini Pradhan Swarup Shakti, that is, Bhagwan's intrinsic potency predominated by the energy related to pure bliss. In the revealed scriptures, this has been identified as highly confidential knowledge or Gauḍīya Vidya. This secret knowledge has two functions. One is bhakti and the other is as the initiator of bhakti. Through this confidential knowledge, prema bhakti manifests. Therefore, bhakti is intrinsically the special function of the Swarup Shakti predominated by Ahladini and is a self-manifesting spiritual entity. She is not dependent on any other cause for her appearance. In numerous places, Śrīmad Bhagavatam explains that bhakti manifests without cause and of her own accord. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahetukye apratihada yayatma suprasidati. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1:2-6. Only unconditional devotion to the lotus feet of Bhagwan, who is Adhokshaja, imperceptible, has been described as the supreme dharma of mankind. Such devotion is unconditional, it arises without any cause, and is unimpeded by any material condition. Also, yadrichhaya mat kathado jat shraddhastu yaha puman na nirvinno na atishakto bhakti yogo asya siddhidaha. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 11:28. He who is neither overly renounced nor exceedingly attached to this world, and in whom, by the mercy of my inherently autonomous bhakti, faith has been awakened in the narrations of my pastimes and so forth, is qualified for bhakti yoga and thus attains perfection through it. Asmil loke vartamanaha swadharmastho anagha shuchi jnanam vishuddham apnoti madbhaktim va yadrachhaya. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 11:20-11. That person who remains firmly established in the observance of his own dharma, being sinless even while remaining within his material body, becomes pure. Thereafter, the knowledge of Vishuddha Tattva, that is, knowledge of Bhagavad Tattva and of his own Swarupa, the inherent nature, as my servant, awakens in him, and he obtains bhakti to me, which is independent and causeless. Thus, in these verses and others like Yadrachya Avopchita, the word Yadrachya signifies of her own accord or Svecha. In other words, bhakti arises of her own independent sweet will. Thus, bhakti has been called causeless or ahetuki. She is self-manifesting, meaning she emerges of her own volition. It has been said in Śrīla Jiva Gosvāmī's Priti Sandarbha Anuched 65, the purport of which is that only bhakti brings the devotee near to Bhagwan, only bhakti grants direct darshan of Bhagwan, and only bhakti controls Bhagwan. That is why bhakti is the principal sadhan to attain Bhagwan. In this connection, it is worth deliberating upon the symptom of that bhakti, who, by her own bliss, makes Bhagwan intoxicated. It is being explained here that one cannot consider bhakti to be the mundane bliss intrinsic to the material mode of goodness, as held by the Sankhyavadis. Shruti also establishes this conclusion. Since Bhagwan is complete in himself and thus self-content, he never becomes attracted by the modes of material nature. Neither can bhakti be described as Bhagavad Swarupananda, the bliss inherent in Bhagwan's very form, which is the doctrine of the impersonal monists or Nirvisheshavadis, who experience the bliss of impersonal Brahma. If that were so, then it would not be possible to establish the greatness of bhakti over that bliss. Bhagwan desires the bliss of bhakti more than he desires the bliss inherent within himself. Bhakti is also not the bliss inherent in the living entity's constitutional nature or Jiva Swarupananda, since that bliss is extremely minute and consequently Bhagwan cannot become overpowered by it. It is said in Vishnu Puran 1.12.69, Ahaladani Sandhni Samvit Tvai Ek Sarva Samasthitau Ahalad Tap Kari Mishra Tvai No Guna Varjite. O Bhagwan, you are the shelter of everything. Three energies intrinsic to your Swarupa, Ahaladani, Sandhni and Samvit, exist permanently and resplendently within you, the omnipotent Lord. You are devoid of the material modes of nature, neither mundane joy, sattvic, nor misery, tamasic, nor mixtures thereof, rajasic, are present in you. According to this evidence from the Vishnu Purana, the only bliss that remains after mundane bliss in the mode of goodness, the bliss inherent in Bhagwan's own Swarupa, and the inherent bliss of the living entity, is the bliss arising from Bhagwan's intrinsic potency, Swarupa Shakti Ananda, named Ahaladani. This is because it is only through this Ahaladani Shakti that Bhagwan experiences his own intrinsic bliss in an extraordinary manner. That is, by the ecstasy of this energy, he relishes a special delight. It is through this Shakti that Bhagwan bestows bliss on the bhaktas. Now a doubt may arise. Since that Ahladani Shakti permanently exists within Bhagwan, how can he possibly be overwhelmed by his own Shakti? To remove this confusion, the following line of reasoning is to be considered. By the application of Arthapatti Pramana, which reconciles any apparent contradictions by making an inference from circumstances, the illogical becomes logical. Accordingly, it is certainly cognate that an experience that increases Bhagwan's Ananda should have some other cause, when that which causes something to happen is absent, and yet that event still occurs. It is to be inferred that there must be another cause at work. This is known as Arthapatti Pramana. For example, Devadatta does not eat during the day, yet he is well built. Given that he does not eat during the day, it is deduced through Arthapatti Pramana that he must necessarily be eating at night. In this way, the absurd becomes logical. Applying the same reasoning, although it is impossible for Ahaladani, the bliss arising from his intrinsic potency, to give more bliss to Bhagwan than the bliss existing in his own form, he nonetheless does receive more bliss from her. This seemingly contradiction can, however, be resolved by applying Arthapatti Pramana. Here, it is to be noted that only Ahladani Shakti can give bliss to Bhagwan. No one else can. Bhagwan is actually experiencing a bliss that is impossible for him to experience through Ahladani. That is, he experiences a bliss he necessarily cannot get from her. Therefore, it is certainly logical that there must be some other cause of his experiencing this Ananda. This conclusion is reached in much the same way that it was deduced that Devadatta eats at night. Indeed, it is Ahladani in a different form that bestows this profuse Ananda upon Bhagwan. This is understood through Arthapatti Pramana. In conclusion, it is none other than the abundant, all blissful, eternal function of that Ahladini, which is impelled in the heart of the bhaktas, that is, designated as Bhagavad Priti or love for Bhagwan. Thus, when the Swarupa Shakti, Ahladini, with the assistance of Swarup Shakti, the Bhakta, attains a special state that reaches the pinnacle of Ananda, it is known as the abundant, all blissful, eternal function of Ahladini. Experiencing that affection in the heart of the devotees, Bhagwan reciprocates accordingly by becoming the object of their affection. As stated previously, Bhakti is Bhagwan's Swarup Shakti. Bhagwan's Swarupa is comprised of Sat, Chit and Ananda. Consequently, his spiritual energy has three functions: Sandhini, Samvit and Ahladini. The energy related to existence or Sat is called Sandhini. Through it, Bhagwan maintains the existence of himself and others. The energy related to knowledge or jnana is called Samvit. Through it, Bhagwan knows himself and makes himself known to others. The energy related to bliss or Ananda is Ahladini. Through it, Bhagwan personally experiences Ananda and grants Ananda to others as well. 3. Bhakti is not caused by any type of pious act. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. At times, certain highly enlightened personalities have also interpreted the word yadrachha to mean by the awakening of some good fortune. But if yadrichha is interpreted in this way, bhakti's cause is to be considered. Is it brought about by virtuous deeds, shubha karma? Alternatively, is it caused by the absence of such deeds? First, if we accept that good fortune is awakened by virtuous acts, then bhakti would be subservient to shubha karma. This is contradictory to the self-manifesting nature of bhakti. Therefore, that bhakti is awakened by good fortune arising from shubha karma cannot be accepted. Second, if we suppose that the cause of bhakti is good fortune arising from the absence of any virtuous action, then the cause of that good fortune becomes indescribable and unknown. Such good fortune, having no known cause, falls into veritable obscurity. How can that which is itself utterly undetermined be the cause of anything else? In other words, how can good fortune that is undetermined be the cause of bhakti? Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Through these verses from Śrīmad Bhagavatam, the author of this book, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura, has established the self-effulgent nature of bhakti by explaining that the word yadrichha is to be interpreted as of one's own accord. In Sridhar Swami's explanation of the word yadrichha as used within the previously mentioned Śrīmad Bhagavatam verse, beginning Yadrichhaya mat kathado, he has written, Yadrichhaya kena api bhagya udayina. The word Yadrichhaya means by the emergence of some good fortune. According to this explanation, to concede that good fortune born of virtuous action is the cause of bhakti would be to deprive bhakti of a quality of independence, or in other words, of her self-effulgent nature. If the word yadrichha is interpreted to mean awakening from some good fortune, then the question arises, what produces that good fortune? One kind of good fortune is awakened through the performance of pious action or shubha karma. If pious action is accepted as the answer to this question, then bhakti becomes subordinate to pious action. In that case, bhakti would be tainted by the defect of dependence on karma, and thus her quality of self-effulgence would be lost. But all the revealed scriptures disclose that bhakti is self-effulgent. All the Shrutis and Smritis proclaim bhakti to be composed of eternality, cognizance and bliss, just as Bhagwan is, and to be a function of the Swarup Shakti. Hence, to consider bhakti dependent and thereby reject her self-effulgent quality is an offense born out of disdain for the statements of Shruti. The second point speaks of this good fortune as being occasioned by an absence of any virtuous action. As such, since the cause of its awakening remains unknown, that good fortune cannot be established in any way. How can that which is itself undetermined be the cause of anything else? 3D. Is bhakti attained by the mercy of Bhagwan? Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Third, if we accept that Bhagwan's mercy is in fact the root cause of bhakti, then a natural desire arises to investigate the cause of that mercy, as well as each successive cause, but still one will be unable to reach a final conclusion. Hence, in such deliberation, the problem of indeterminacy arises. Fourth, if it is accepted that such unconditional or causeless mercy or ahetuki kripa of Bhagwan is in fact the cause of awakening of bhakti, then Bhagwan would appear to be beset with the fault of inequity, since bhakti is not observed universally. Bhagwan is impartial. So, if his ahetuki kripa is the cause of bhakti, then that causeless mercy ought to have been bestowed upon everyone. But this is not what we see. Bhakti is not present in everyone. She abides in some and not in others. In that case, it would have to be conceded that Bhagwan's attitude is not equal to all and is thus tainted by the fault of unfairness or favoritism. But it cannot even be conceived that such a fault can exist in Bhagwan. The following question may also arise. In Bhagwan's meting out punishment to the wicked and protecting his own bhaktas, not indicative of iniquity? In response, it is said that his doing so does not indicate unfairness, rather, it is his greatest quality. Among the innumerable qualities present in Bhagwan, his intense affection for his devotees or bhakta vatsalya reigns supreme, standing as the monarch of all his qualities. This subject will be analyzed fully in the 8th shower of the sacred text. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Third, if it is said that actually the awakening of this good fortune is due to Bhagwan's mercy, then what is the cause of that mercy? Moreover, what is the cause of that cause? Since no definite conclusion is arrived at by investigating each successive cause, such an investigation is tainted by the fault of infinite regress. Fourth, if Bhagwan's causeless mercy is accepted as the cause of this awakening of that good fortune, it is appropriate to suppose that all living entities would have the good fortune of attaining bhakti, but this is not seen. Some obtain the good fortune and some do not. This conception is therefore based on the assumption that Bhagwan is tainted by the defect of iniquity. Someone may say that since Bhagwan protects the devotees and slays the demons, he does indeed have the shortcoming of iniquity. In response, it is being explained that any iniquity observed in Sri Bhagwan's punishing the wicked and protecting his own devotees is not a fault, but rather his greatest ornament. In other words, it is the mark of his most exalted quality. Among all the qualities present in Bhagwan, the quality of affection for his devotees is resplendent above all others. Indeed, even in the slaying of demons, Bhagwan manifests his immense mercy to them. This is because, as the inevitable result of their malevolence towards Sri Bhagwan and his devotees, their soul, that is, upon leaving their present body, would normally be cast into hell and the like, where they would be perpetually experience severe agonies and would not be able to obtain bhakti. Therefore, on the pretext of slaying the demons, Bhagwan shows even them unlimited compassion, mercifully granting them liberation or mukti, which is extremely rare even for the yogis. The 8th shower of the holy text specifically analyzes this subject. 3. The mercy of Bhagwan's devotees is the cause of obtaining bhakti. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. The mercy of the devotees is said to be the cause of bhakti. The Bhagavad Bhakta's mercy, like the mercy of Bhagwan, is causeless. In this case, also, it is improper to find any defect of iniquity or partisanship in the mercy of Bhagwan's devotees. Still, the symptoms of a Madhyam Bhakta or intermediate devotee are stated in Śrīmad Bhagavatam 11:2-46. He who adopts the mood of love towards the Lord, fellowship towards the devotees of the Lord, mercy towards the ignorant, and neglect towards the antagonists, is a Madhyam Bhagavata. According to these symptoms, iniquity is seen in the Madhyam Bhakta. These qualities are actually the defining qualities of the Madhyam Bhakta. Sri Bhagwan is conquered by his bhaktas. Therefore, if his mercy follows the mercy of his bhaktas, there is no question of any kind of incongruity. In other words, only by attaining the mercy of the bhakta does one attain the mercy of Bhagwan. Bhakti forever exists within the heart of the bhakta, and therefore the root cause of his bestowal of the bhakta's mercy upon others is verily the bhakti in his heart. Without bhakti residing within the bhakta, there is no possibility of mercy being awakened for anyone. In this way, the self-manifesting nature of bhakti is established. Hence, in the verse beginning, Yaha kenapi ati bhagyena jat shraddho asya sevane. Whoever by some extreme good fortune has been invested with faith in service to Bhagwan. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1:2-14. The words ati bhagyena invalidate the assertion that any such good fortune is born of pious action or shubha karma. One should know that the absolute meaning of ati bhagyena is by the mercy of bhaktas. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Śrīla Cakravartī Ṭhākura has delineated the independent and self-manifesting nature of bhakti, which, like Bhagwan, is intrinsically eternal, sat, all-cognizant, chit, and blissful, ananda. Also, he has established that neither good fortune born of any pious action nor Bhagwan's causeless mercy yields bhakti. Through sound reasoning, the author is now establishing the conclusion or siddhanta that bhakti is awakened by the mercy of a bhakta, a notion which, if accepted, does away with any confusion. In the same manner that Bhagwan's mercy is causeless, absolute and purely spiritual, the mercy of the bhakta is also causeless, absolute and purely spiritual. This is so because a tiny amount of all Bhagwan's qualities are transmitted to his devotees. This has been said in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 22.75. Krishna Bhakte Krishner Gun Sakali Sanchare. All the transcendental qualities of Krishna are transmitted to his devotees. However, small the quantity, innately, those qualities certainly remain unchanged. But still, Bhagwan's mercy is not seen to be disseminated everywhere. Surely this means that Bhagwan is beset with the fault of iniquity. However, the notion that such iniquity exists within Sri Bhagwan is erroneous, inappropriate, and the antithesis of the attributes of his intrinsic nature. Likewise, such iniquity seems inappropriate in the bhakta also, but it accords with the symptoms of Madhyam Bhakta. This is the verdict of Śrīmad Bhagavatam 11.2.46. Ishvare taddaneshu balasheshu dushatsu cha prem maitri kripa upeksha ya karoti sa madhyamaha. He who offers his love to Sri Bhagwan remains a sincere friend to all Vaishnavas, shows mercy to the innocent, and neglects those who are envious of Bhagwan and the Vaishnavas, is a Madhyam Vaishnava. Thus, in Śrīmad Bhagavatam, Sri Havi Yogendra, the best of the Nav Yogendras, has clearly described that the partiality of being merciful towards ordinary, ignorant people and neglectful of those who are inimical towards devotees of the Supreme Lord is the symptom of a Madhyam Bhakta. Therefore, it is clearly understood that such partiality of the Madhyam Bhaktas is not harmful for their bhakti. Indeed, it is solely by the mercy of Madhyam Bhaktas that ordinary people attain bhakti. Since Sri Bhagwan is conquered by his devotee, when his devotee bestows mercy upon someone, Bhagwan's mercy for the person is also awakened. When this is carefully contemplated, it can be discerned that bhakti is forever resplendently abiding within the bhakta's heart. It is solely through this bhakti that the bhaktas bestow mercy upon common persons, and the common persons have attained bhakti through them. Therefore, bhakti is the only cause of the appearance of bhakti. She does not depend on anything else to manifest herself. This has been thoroughly proven. There thus remains no doubt that bhakti is never bereft of her independence or her self-manifesting nature. With evidence from revealed scripture, the author now further presents how the mercy of bhakta is the cause of bhakti. In the verse beginning with Yaha kenapi ati bhagyena jat shraddho asya sevane, whoever by some extreme good fortune has been invested with faith and service to Bhagwan. Sri Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1-14. The words ati bhagyena or extreme good fortune are actually intended to mean the mercy of a bhakta, which far surpasses any good fortune born of pious action or shubha karma. In fact, the good fortune born of the mercy of devotees of Bhagwan is the only thing capable of surpassing good fortune arising from pious action. In the mercy of Bhagwan, iniquity may be deemed a flaw, but there is no possibility of partiality being a fault in the mercy of Bhagwan's devotees or Mahat Kripa. Therefore, humankind obtains bhakti only through good fortune in the form of the mercy of these exalted souls, the devotees of Bhagwan. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura thus refutes the interpretation of Kena api bhagyodena as mere good fortune and discloses the true interpretation to be Yadrichha Mahatasanga, good fortune born of the mercy of exalted souls. Raising various points through logic and reasoning, he demonstrates bhakti's quality of being self-manifest. Text 4. 4a. Bhagwan's mercy potency is entrusted to the devotee. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. An objection may be raised that it is not possible for the mercy of the devotee to exist first, before the mercy of Bhagwan, because the action of the devotees are inspired by Bhagwan. But this cannot be, because Sri Bhagwan, who accepts a mood of submission to his bhaktas, personally offers his mercy potency to them, so that they can elevate those who are desirous of performing Hari Bhajan. Thus, he has established the bhakta's excellence in this regard. Bhagwan, the indwelling supersoul, has governance over the living entities. Through his Maya potency, he maintains control of only those living entities who, through their external senses, are reaping the fruits, their previously unseen destiny of lifetimes of sinful and pious activities. In regard to his own devotees, however, Bhagwan's personal direct grace is seen. In this context, Śrīmad Bhagavad Gita 18.62 states, Tat prasadat paramam shantim sthanam. By the gracious blessing of that Supreme Controller or Ishvara, you will achieve ultimate peace and the eternal abode. Herein, the word prasada must certainly be understood as grace in the form of him bestowing his personal mercy potency. This has been previously stated. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Someone may say that since the bhaktas are subordinate to the will of Bhagwan, how can their mercy awaken independently without Bhagwan's will or inspiration? Since inspiration from Bhagwan also underlies the bhakta's mercy, that inspiration is to be considered the prime cause of good fortune, and it takes the form of the mercy of these great souls. How then is bhakti's self-manifesting nature to be accepted? In answer to this question, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura explains that due to Bhagwan's quality of bhaktivaśyata or submission to his devotees, he has voluntarily placed the potency of mercy in the hearts of his bhaktas, such that the bhakta's mercy does not have to wait for Bhagwan's will or inspiration. The bhaktas can independently bestow mercy upon ordinary people. Bhagwan has, of his own accord, bestowed this kind of excellence upon his devotees. Bhakti Sandarbha Anucheda 180 states, the particular significance of Mahat Kripa or the mercy of his devotees is that if it were not independent, it would not have been impossible for anyone in this world to have obtained the mercy of Bhagwan. Bhagwan is exclusively and in the most complete way condensed spiritual bliss or ananda. He is impenetrable by corruption and he is untouched by the material energy or maya. Herein lies the distinction between Bhagwan and the living entities or jivas. Just as there is no possibility of the slightest darkness remaining within the sun, which is a reservoir of profuse light, so it is absolutely impossible for unhappiness to touch Bhagwan, who is by nature absolutely blissful. Shruti also states, Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. Like the supremely luminous sun, he is far above darkness. This is why Bhagwan cannot be touched by any of the unhappiness felt by the jivas. Being the inherent form of Ananda, he remains continuously overwhelmed by Ananda. People in general, however, are touched by the misery of others and the mercy awakens within their hearts. Sri Bhagwan is the condensed form of supreme bliss or Param Ananda. Although all potency to make the impossible possible, along with their other potencies, always reside within him. Still, it is not possible for him to have compassion for the wayward jivas. That is why the mercy bestowed autonomously by great souls is in fact the sole means to effect the deliverance of the abject and unhappy jivas. Like Bhagwan, sadhus also wander in the realm of Ananda, which is made up of Shuddha Sattva or pure existence, and therefore they cannot be touched by any of the unhappiness of the material world, which innately consists of the modes of passion and ignorance. Still, as a man waking from the sleep can remember the miseries he felt in his dreaming state, the Mahapurushas sometimes remember the miseries of this world. When their hearts are thus melted with compassion, they show mercy to the wayward souls. Because of this, Sri Bhagwan, who is all compassionate, places his own mercy in the heart of these great souls and keeps their mercy completely independent, so that the common people can become inclined to him. Therefore, Bhagwan's mercy is transmitted into the heart of the jivas in the wake of Mahat, Kripa or the mercy of great souls, and not through his own personal will. Now, one may counter this notion by saying that Antaryami Bhagwan, who governs from within as Supersoul, inspires the hearts of all living entities and grants the power of activity to their internal and external senses. In answer to this, Bhagwan himself says in Bhagavad Gita 18.61, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridadeshe arjun tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra arudani mayaya. O Arjuna, the indwelling Supersoul is situated in the heart of all living beings. By his illusionary potency, he causes them to wander in the cycle of birth and death, engaging them in various material activities as if they are mounted on a machine. So, does the all-powerful, autonomous Supreme Lord have any control over his devotees' activities? In this regard, it is said that the internal and external senses of the devotees, which are a result of their previously unseen destiny, as well as the ability of those senses to receive Bhagwan's mercy potency, are actually under Bhagwan's direct control. In other words, it is Bhagwan's own potency alone that duly governs the revelation of his mercy potency in the senses of the bhaktas. The devotees are not fully independent in this regard. Still, it is seen that Bhagwan bestows his grace upon his own devotees. In a sense, the wayward jivas are subordinate to the accumulated prarabdha karma, or manifest result of previous material activities. In the form of the Supersoul, Bhagwan, by his external energy, inspires these jivas from within and motivates or empowers their internal sense, the mind, and their external senses to undergo the results of their past deeds. Yet, he does not control his bhaktas' senses in the same way. Although the bhaktas may consider their joys and sorrows to be arising from their previous karma, they are not in fact subordinate to their prarabdha karma. Their joys, sorrows, and all else are taking place by the will of Bhagwan in a way that is favorable to the nourishment of their bhakti. In regard to the manifestation of Bhagwan's mercy potency in the bhakta's senses, Bhagwan himself is the sole regulator. The devotees, therefore, do not have any control in regard to the mercy Bhagwan bestows upon them. But in the matter of distributing mercy to other jivas, Bhagwan has personally made his own mercy potency flow through the bhaktas, thus granting them full freedom to do this work. In the Gita 18.62, Bhagwan personally says, Tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapyasi sashvatam. Surrender completely to him, that supreme controller. By his grace you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme eternal abode. Here, the word prasada should be understood as the favor of Bhagwan in the form of the bestowal of his mercy potency. 4b. Nishkama karma and so forth are the gateway to bhakti. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Furthermore, Śrīmad Bhagavatam and hundreds of other evidences have thoroughly established that Bhagwan descends to this world solely of his own accord. Through the adventures of the autocratic manifestations of Godhead, Śrīmad Bhagavatam 4:8-57, and you appear exclusively to satisfy the yearnings of your pure devotees, Śrīmad Bhagavatam 10:14-2. Still, those with external vision maintain that removing the burden of the earth and the like are the cause of Bhagwan's appearance. Similarly, in certain places in the scriptures, processes like Nishkama karma or selfless action offered to Bhagwan and so forth have been described as the doorway to bhakti. There is no harm in this. In other words, nothing incorrect has been stated. However, Śrīmad Bhagavatam 11.12.9 states, One cannot obtain bhakti to me even by making a great endeavor to practice mysticism or yoga, analyze the elements or sankhya, acquire monistic knowledge or jnana, give in charity or dana, follow sacred vows or vrata, perform austerity or tapasya, engage in authorized rituals or yajna, explain scriptures or shastra vyakhya, study the Vedas or swadhyaya, and accept the renounced order of life or sannyasa. Through such evidence as this, the notion that bhakti is acquired through charity, saintly vows, and so forth has been clearly refuted. Yet, Śrīmad Bhagavatam 10:47-24 states elsewhere, The living entities in this world attain Krishna Bhakti through various auspicious acts, such as giving in charity, making saintly vows, performing austerity, offering oblations, chanting mantras, and studying the Vedas. How then is it possible to reconcile these scriptural statements? Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura is harmonizing the statements of the scriptures that seem to contradict bhakti's quality of being self-manifesting. In certain places in the scriptures, Nishkama karma, or dedicating the results of one's action to Sri Bhagwan, has been called the gateway to bhakti. Through these statements, a doubt may arise in the heart of some that if dedicating the results of one's action to Bhagwan is the cause of bhakti, then how can bhakti's quality of being self-manifesting be substantiated? With an example, this subject is being deliberated upon with profound scriptural insight. Through statements from Śrīmad Bhagavatam such as Svecha Avatara Charitahi 4.857 and Svecha Mayasya 10.14.2, it becomes clear that the Supreme Lord, who is independent of all rules, descends to this world of his own accord. Nevertheless, from an external perspective, the reasons for Bhagwan's descent have been cited as removing the burden of the earth and so on. If this is deliberated upon more carefully, something becomes obvious. Can he who effects the dissolution of countless millions of universes simply by his desire not vanquish a few demons and thereby remove the burden of the earth just by willing it? That said, having descended upon the earth of his own accord, Leela Maya Bhagwan performs various pastimes, giving pleasure to his devotees. In this manner, even if from an external perspective, Nishkama Karma and so on appear to be the gateway to bhakti, if we deliberate upon this more carefully, it is understood that there is no way to obtain bhakti other than by the mercy of the bhaktas. Therefore, although it has been pointed out that Nishkama Karma and so on are mentioned as the gateway to bhakti, it does not mean that bhakti's quality of being self-manifesting is diminished.